Classic FM
97.3.
Don't you ever touch my stereo.
The Discourse with Dr. Ken will be right back. The Discourse. The Discourse. On Classic FM. You are sharper with Dr. Ken.
Today, we are dealing with a subject that we had, a guest we had on the 25th of June on wealth creation. Our guest is Vida Echetabu. It's not surprising, any discussion or conversation on wealth is bound to stir a lot of interest, and so by popular demand you were told that we're going to have a 2.0 on wealth creation. So welcome to the Discourse with Dr. Ken, Wealth Creation 2.0 with Vida Echetabu. Vida Echetabu is a consultant general of 4th Avenue Limited. She's a wealth creation and financial services expert with experience in wealth management. She introduces her business in an interesting concept, which she says ABC, A being advisory, B being brokerage, and then C being communication. She's a multi-talented and thoroughbred wealth and pension manager. Okay, so welcome, Vida Echetabu.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Good. Like I said, this is 2.0. So we are going to expect that you will give us some kind of refresher. Before we go on, I'd like to announce that we take comments and questions, and the number to reach us on is 0909 217 2973. Again, 0909 217 2973. And so, as you get that down, we are going to now go on to have the first question. Today, we'll be talking about, how did you phrase this? Wealth Creation 2.0, Fairy Tales from the Grave.
Fairy Tales from the Grave.
Vida, who's speaking from the grave? Tell us.
I wish people could really speak from the grave. And this conversation actually is just centered around legacy and wealth transfer. And in order to be able to explain this, I will do a quick dive back into 1.0.
Sure.
But before I go any further, I would like to appreciate, being invited back. And I'm glad that value was enjoyed and received the first time. And so we'll do this again and again. Anyway, so moving forward, Fairy Tales from the Grave actually is an ironic statement because death is a terminal point. It's a final situation. And when we talk about legacy, we talk about wealth transfer. These are all things that really should happen in this lifetime. In 1.0, during our conversation at that point, we did talk about, different types of wealth. And we talked also about the element of gold digging, which was, the pivotal point of that conversation. We talked about how human beings, are we really gold diggers? And the reality is that we are gold diggers. I'm a bona fide gold digger because, again, I want to be associated with people who have value, to contribute to my repertoire of wealth, my arsenal of wealth. And likewise, other people also want to mine value from me, which is why they're around me. They're also mining for gold and for value. And if we do not have gold and value, which is the wealth, then there really is no conversation to have around wealth transfer and legacy, which is the conversation we're having here today.
Okay, that's good for a refresher. Yeah, 1.0 was about wealth creation. 2.0 is about wealth transfer.
Yes.
I'm going to ask 2-point questions, sort of.
Okay.
Okay. This may still be on the basics, but I think it's always nice for us to have as much knowledge or information as possible. Okay.
Yes, sir.
One of the most powerful statements I've heard with regards to the subject that we are discussing, somebody says, money talks, but wealth whispers. Okay? So wealth transfer versus money creation. I've never heard that said before. I've only heard wealth. Okay, wealth transfer. I've never heard about. I mean, wealth creation. I've never heard about money creation. Transfer, yes, I hear money transfer.
Money transfer,
That's
right.
the electronic thing that people
Yes.
are sending money. So what's this whole thing about the real distinction between money and wealth?
Okay.
That's a question that people want to know what the distinction is.
Yes, and that's because when we speak, a lot of times we use terms interchangeably. And just before I answer that question, it's just like you meet somebody today and you say, "Oh, that's my friend." That person is not your friend. That is somebody you were friendly with. That's an acquaintance, an associate, but not your friend in the proper definition of it. It's the same way, similarly, people use money to express wealth and the like, but that is not wealth, really. Money is an element of wealth. It's one of the makeup parts of wealth, but it is not the exact definition of wealth. So we have money, which, just for this conversation, naira, dollars, pounds, yen, and co. And then we also have property. We have relationships, because relationships are actually the real McCoy of wealth, really. We have gadgets. People have stored their resources in forms of Rolex watches, gold blocks, gold jewelry. So wealth is really quite encompassing. You can have intellectual wealth, really, because at the end of the day, professors are trading an intellectual, knowledge-based wealth. Okay. So money is just one of the elements of wealth. I hope that clarifies.
Okay, interesting. The concept, the term you use there, the real McCoy.
The real McCoy.
What we will say here, it brings me to, this is a Yoruba saying, but a lot of Nigerians will understand it. If you look on the internet, you will see that probably up to 15 or so songs, okay, coming out of this environment, this country, that says Owoni Koko.
Coco.
Okay, that's the Koko of it. That's
the Ijinle of the matter.
That is the McCoy. So what it means is that money, okay, or wealth, which should one seek?
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, please.
Yes, Taisolo, by the way, good afternoon, listeners. I was hoping Taisolo will introduce me at some point just to reassure you that I'm on the program. My name is Dr. Ken. That little glitch was because I was jumping through the channels from London to Paris, and I hope that didn't affect the commencement of the program too much. But you said something, David, and that is the one that really resonates with me. You said about intellectual wealth, because that's the one I have. Is it? Do we put more premium on the material wealth in terms of money and coins and etc.? Before you answer, because I'd like you to take it as part 2 of so that I don't forget the question.
Okay.
That I put on the table. By the way, I normally start this program by giving you the proverb, and the proverb of the week is that it's such a proverb that dates way back, that only people of our generation will probably understand. But take your question, and I will come back with the program and the proverb, David.
All right, Doctor. I'm nervous about that proverb now, because the last time I was on, you took me to school, but I'm going to learn again today, apparently. So going back to the question, really, and both questions are pretty much similar in my, at least best I know.
Wealth, money, or riches? Which one do we seek?
We will seek wealth.
Okay.
We will seek wealth because, again, that takes care of everything. If you seek wealth, you'll eventually get money because it's part of it. And as Dr. asked, he said he has intellectual wealth, Should we be seeking that or another? And the truth is, every form of physical expression of wealth that is available and obtainable on the surface of the earth or even below the earth really is driven by intellectual knowledge, intellectual wealth. It's driven by the unseen. Again, part of the package of having me is that I typically would, I'm not modest about my Christianity. So I draw some wisdom from there, a lot of wisdom from there. And essentially, there's a passage in the Bible that says that the physical things are drawn from the invincible things. Knowledge is invincible. Revelation, ideas, creativity, all these things are wealth, and they're not physical, but it is from the arsenal of intellectual ideas, revelation, inspiration, creativity, whichever term you prefer to use, that all these other physical elements of money, houses, cars, all the trimmings and trinkets that we like, come from. Let me just buttress that a little bit. If somebody looks at me and says, "Oh, Vida, you're doing an awesome job. I'm going to give you $1 million, 100 million. Let's go for gold. $100 million. I will soon be parted from that if I do not have revelation, understanding, insight, wisdom, knowledge in order to manage that, arsenal of that part of the wealth, the physical
wisdom.
part.
Did I hear you say wisdom?
Wisdom. Oh.
So probably that's the reason why scripture says that a fool and his money are quickly parted.
Quickly, in a hurry.
Okay.
And the thing is that the rate of speed for hurry varies. So for some people, you think it's overnight. But like we say, if you're not learning, you are losing or you're dying. So we have to continually enhance that part of wealth, the wealth of knowledge. We can't do away with it, no matter the resources or no matter the other elements, of wealth that you have acquired. You have to have that other part, which plays a role in transference, in legacy, in wealth transfer that we're actually discussing today, really.
Okay. Dr. Ken?
Fantastic. So the proverb for the week is, those whose palm kernel were cracked for them by benevolent spirit must not forget to be humble.
Oh, my word. Okay. All right. Let me attempt my understanding of that proverb, at least, and see how I can try it, translate it to today. So, it reminds me of another, I don't know if it's a proverb or a saying, I keep falling into that trap with doctor. I'm never sure which one it is. But they say that the child who they are carrying on the back doesn't know how far the journey is,
Okay.
And that means, again, I assume there's some similarity in the translation of both sayings. His is a proverb, I think mine is a saying. That where you have been blessed, where you've been given a platform, do not ever think that it was purely by your entitlement or your earning. You have to stay humble to realize that people opened the door for you, and that the other people who did not get the benefit of doors being opened for them or being provided platforms are not any less than you are. You've just been favored by God to enjoy certain privileges. That is where I will stop and allow the master take it up from there.
Thank you very much, because that proverb was supposed to lay the foundation for further interrogation of this topic, which takes me to wealth transfer, because you couldn't talk about wealth creation if we're not able to transfer it.
Absolutely.
Or do you disagree with that?
No. Because at the end of the day, we're not just eating for today. We're eating to make sure that there's continuity. There is the cycle of life keeps on going. We can't say we're eating today and after today we just want to lay down and die. So whatever endeavors we're getting into, whatever activities we're getting into, we're meant to make sure that we transfer it. Like a relay race, you pass the baton to the next person, to the next generation.
Yes, Yinka from Lagos mainland is asking a question here.
Okay.
He says, "Good day to you and your guest, the wealth transfer resource person." Okay, but how are these types of wealth transferred? Intellectual and relationship. Intellectual wealth and relationship wealth. Okay, how are they transferred?
Okay. Now, intellectual wealth really is transferred. One of the ways, I like to give really practical examples.
Yes.
One of the ways that intellectual wealth is transferred, this is having this program right now, the Discourse with Dr. Ken on Classic FM 97.3. We are transferring intellectual wealth right now.
Yeah.
This is a real life practical session. Now, if we're going to put it in terms of family context, so to speak, I'm going to say something and I can bet you that the average Nigerian knows the response.
Say it.
Story.
Story.
There you go. You see, I didn't need to prime you. So in the family setting, there is also transference from discussions that are held. In fact, that reminds me that from 1.0, there was a family intervention that was held for me.
Okay.
And that ties to knowledge, the intellectual transfer. During 1.0, I did mention something about my family background a little bit, and I mentioned my parents were civil servants. I mentioned briefly that my dad was also a career diplomat. But I didn't emphasize a lot on that. I emphasized more on the fact that they were civil servants and perhaps they didn't really, have a lot of exposure towards wealth management and planning. Now, to put that in context, so the family realized that there was a large chunk of knowledge that I didn't have, a major one. And so they had to do a little quick one for me to say, it's not all together as you saw. Like most families, because after I had my own intervention, I asked around. They had plans, there were structures in place, there were businesses they set up, but life happened, and we pray never to have those life happened situations. Now, after they had the conversation with me, I'm better equipped to know that, okay, it wasn't that my parents didn't plan, but that circumstances such as sickness and all sorts of things can happen that can erode wealth and wealth vehicles, which again, like we all say, and I'm sure everybody's going to say amen, we pray never to have certain circumstances that take us to ground zero. In Jesus' name, amen. So in terms of this now, the practical example is that because there was no deliberate family conversation, prior to 1.0 saying, these were the assets that we had. These were the businesses that were done. These were the endeavors that were, established. That knowledge was missing altogether. A lot of families are in that scenario where they don't know the things that their parents or significant others have invested in. And then where we're being so nervous about sharing this information, many die. The family is left behind in a quagmire of situations, and they do not have any clue that there's some huge asset sitting down somewhere. There's some relationship sitting down somewhere that just a call, just an appearance can actually sort out the issues. So how does wealth and intellectual knowledge get transferred? Whether we like it or not, actually, culture is stronger than wills and trusts, and I'll come to that.
Okay.
The stories we tell play a huge role. The entire Walt Disney organization is riding on once upon a time in a land far, far away. It's riding on stories, on fairy tales, passed from generations to generations. We know as adults those are fictional, but we still love them. So that's to show you how wealth, intellectual wealth, can very easily and readily be transferred from generation to generation by communicating it. Now, with regards to, I think you mentioned property. Was it property that the person asked? I know he asked intellectual
and relationship.
And relationship, well, yes. I have a relationship with XYZ. The only way to transfer it is I introduce people to that person. If I have children, when I have children, if XYZ's family has been good, I should be able to tell them the story of this is how we met. And this is how the relationship has been. And, trust that both families are doing this and, it's passing from generation to generation.
I don't know where my mind is going. But
tell me. But
I'll just volunteer. Okay. So you were probably talking about the reason why. I'm getting some kind of insight or maybe clarity to this. The reason why it may be good for a family or some family will introduce so that their son or their daughter marries the son or the
there
daughter.
You go.
So is that an example?
It is. It plays a huge role.
Keeping it in the family.
Keeping it in the family to a certain degree.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that I have one fantastic relationship. This shouldn't mean that that's the only relationship I should have. But because that relationship is valuable, we should also enhance that. Look at the royal families. And for how do I put this? Royals typically marry royals.
Okay.
That's why it was such a big deal in the British royal family when the royals sort of stepped out of marrying fellow royals, because it's an anomaly. All those royals marrying royals, there are stories, there are relationships, there's wealth being transferred between both, and so we really can't dissociate that. Okay,
we're going to break. We're going to break now, and then when we come back, we will continue.
Okay.
Especially in this aspect of maybe skills and craftsmanship and all of.
Oh yes.
And all of that. How you keep such like that. So you are on the Discourse with Dr. Ken. Let's remember that the number to reach us on is 0909 217. Okay, 2973. 0909 217 2973. All right.
The Discourse with Dr. Ken will be right back. The Discourse. The Discourse. On Classic FM. You are sharper with Dr. Ken.
All right, welcome back to the Discourse with Dr. Ken. Dr. Ken, from your London base, meanwhile, you have a question or contribution to this.
Well, I'm following you and I'm enjoying the flow. Not a question. At the appropriate junction, I would. But I was deliberate when I was in London last week to ask a couple of British people what wealth meant to them and what wealth transfer and what is it reliant on culture, and if it is reliant on culture, what is preeminent in terms of what the consideration is. Is it transferred to the most competent person in family? The British said yes, but the French, where I am now, I'm in Paris, is saying no, it's not about competency, it's transferred to the most loved. So the French leans towards love when they consider transfer, and then the English is leaning towards competence. At some point, I'm sure Davida would give us an idea what the difference is and which of them have better longevity.
Vida, what's your understanding or insight of the Nigeria context? This is an interesting aspect.
But don't
in some cases, it is love. In some cases, it is primogeniture. Okay, and all of that, yeah.
Okay. Now, before we go on to the Nigerian part, please, I want to experience a little bit of French affection.
Okay.
Yes. So, it's not altogether surprising that the French would lean towards the most loved. We grew up hearing Paris, the city of love and romance and all that. So, perhaps they have also wound their own experience and their own reputation firmly around a legacy that they are known for. When you think of romance, so to speak, you just think about, oh, je ne sais quoi, and all those type of things. And it's been there so long that they have transferred that position of the ones who are most loving in this world to be the French. And so their transfers of wealth is tied to affection, to love, and that works for them. Now, the British, as Dr. Ken has mentioned, tied to competence. Again, that has worked for them. In Nigeria, we have to now define our own transfer of wealth. What is it that works? It doesn't have to be one singular item like the French love and affection and the British competence. It could be a combination of both. Because after all, I would not be transferring my wealth to somebody who is competent and hates me and my family. That's shooting myself in the foot. And at the same time, I wouldn't be transferring my wealth to somebody who loves me and is absolutely incompetent. Because, yes, they love me, but they don't know what to do with my money. They don't know how to make sure that I never go hungry for the rest of my life and that my children also have a platform to stand and start their lives on. So I believe that, like life, really, it's a bit more complicated, and Nigerians are really more complicated. We have over 250 languages and culture.
It's actually interesting, this bit about the French. I thought that this was universal. And talking about the British, they are the ones who we see so and so and sons. I think, talking biblically now, I think the getting issue here, when you say and sons, really, sonship is essentially about someone who has reached a position of maturity,
yes,
to the extent that they know to take responsibility for their father's real estate.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the reason why you say so and so and sons.
That's a legacy in that statement.
Okay.
That reminds me of the Israeli culture, bar mitzvah.
Okay.
Where a son has reached a particular age, and can also begin to, of course, a well-groomed son, a responsible son. And I believe that is a general underlying, principle there. Well-groomed, reasonable, disciplined son has reached a particular age, and they celebrate their arrival into manhood,
okay,
where they can take decisions for the family.
Vida, I won't let this escape. I won't let this escape us. Why sons? We don't hear daughter in it. Why? What's the reason?
Okay, so
what's the dynamic?
I think that traditionally,
yes,
and biblically, sons were put in positions and expected to be leaders, However, it doesn't mean that daughters, I am a female, for heaven's sake, so I'm not excluding myself from the place of authority and also responsibility, absolutely. But when we use sons, especially scripturally, it just means the offspring. It doesn't necessarily tie to gender.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So when they say somebody is a child, it's different from somebody has now become a son. A child is a child and a son is a son. So it just connotes more of the place of maturity, of responsibility, and authority that comes from that responsibility. Yes, sir.
Which actually will go towards competence more than emotion or sentiment.
Yes.
Okay.
Also, position in family does not always translate as well. Sometimes we make that out to be an issue, but it doesn't necessarily always translate. Because the smartest, most humble, most available child offspring, son, is the one who would be available to learn and to know what to do in the face of such circumstances.
Okay. Dr. Ken? Okay.
I hear that and I'm enjoying it because the combination actually, the challenge for Nigeria is to find that middle point if it is possible to have both combinations. Because once it has to do with competence, you are dealing with dopamine, isn't it? Which is rational. And once it's going to, you are dealing with love. You are dealing with oxytocin, which is the cuddle hormone. So it is finding that fusion and finding that balance. And maybe at some point we'll discuss the dopamine and the oxytocin on this program. But it's a combination of that Nigerians will have to find a confluence and begin to forge what Nigerian culture, because as far as I'm concerned, we don't have a singular Nigerian culture. No. Sometimes we pride, I hear David as saying we have 250 languages and ethnicities. How does that change the price of fish? How has that become of value to Nigeria? So at some point we should stop postulating how much we have, how many of us we are. Some people say we are more than 200 million. What's the quality of that population? What's the quality of that number?
How have we harnessed the numbers, right?
So that's the perspective I always like to come with. So it's an opportunity for Nigeria, for me, because hope would never be lost on Nigeria, in the sense that we must remember, however, that hope is good served for breakfast, but not for dinner. Not
Absolutely.
for dinner. In any case, Nigeria, we've served hope for breakfast, we've served it for lunch, and now we are even attempting to serve it for dinner.
No, we're going to fast for dinner at this point. We don't want hope. We don't want hope for dinner. We want it for breakfast or lunch at the most.
Yeah, so let's talk more about legacy now, and I'm sure that Taisolo would lead that conversation. Legacy.
Okay.
Sosa, if you're out there from Ikoyi, I think your question is answered. Are we saying that the English are practical and the French are emotional? I think we'll have been able to draw from there. It was tending more to what's required is competence.
Yes.
At the end of the day, is somebody who is competent and mature to be able to hold on to the world. That's the only way that you can sustain and then transfer. Good. You were we were hinting at this regarding legacy.
Yes, sir.
And it was about wheels, okay?
Yes.
And then last time you were talking about two principal vehicles of establishing pretty much successful legacies, wills and trustees. These are technical aspects that I think are very, very important for you to now seize the 2.2 opportunity to elaborate on.
Yes. Okay, so with regards to wills and trusts, those are the more formal aspects of, transferring wealth. However, I think that I should just pause so that I think at this point in time there's usually a break of some sort.
Yeah, that's why we're breaking. So
let me just wait so that I dish it hot.
Yeah.
The Discourse with Dr. Ken will be right back. The Discourse. On Classic FM. You are sharper with Dr. Ken.
Okay, good. Yeah. We're talking about wills and
trusts.
Trusts, okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the reason why wills and trusts are there is because when you acquire assets to a particular degree, and that degree is very, very relative, because one man's amazing savings is another person's lunch, but to transfer wealth, documented wealth, houses, bank balances, businesses, all that, in the world as we know it, requires you to either do that by two principal vehicles. And there could be more, but for this conversation, we would stick to wills, or you would do trusts. trust, is a more robust vehicle. And typically people that go for trusts are people who have acquired a significant mass of wealth, that the trust runs like a company, investing and addressing all the other assets within the wealth of that particular individual or entity. Where wills are also, can also meet those same needs to a degree, but wills are, how will I put it, they're terminal to some degree. By this I mean, I have 100 million, XYZ gets this, XYZ gets this person gets this, and that's it. In very, very simple general terms, because this is not a masterclass on wills and trusts. Now, I remember years ago, I think this would have been in 2007-ish, I think, I wanted a will. I was pretty young in career then. I really didn't.
You wanted a will?
I wanted a will.
You wanted to write your will?
Yes.
In 2007?
Yes.
That's looking to me, okay, you wouldn't say a woman's age on air. That sounds like you probably were in high school.
Oh my word.
We're talking about wills. Tell us why.
Okay, so first and foremost, the fundamental reason why I wanted a will was because I liked what I saw in the movies, Oyibo movies to be precise.
Okay.
Somebody dies, they read a will, everybody collects what's their own, everybody goes away. No quarrel, no witchcraft, no fights, no demons, no nothing. It's clean. Everybody wears black, cries politely, and we go away. Whereas the African environment, I'd heard so many stories. People die and this one is dragging this and that one is fighting and all sorts of things are going on. It's a real fiasco. So I liked what I saw in Hollywood movies and I decided that it would be nice to do a will. I didn't plan to die anytime soon, but I just also wanted to make sure I didn't forget so that nobody was dragging anything in my absence. And again, I like the fact that here's my money. I want to give it to who I desire and not somebody saying that...
Vida, here's your school fees, because then it was school fees.
I know, right?
Okay.
So...
You never can tell. She may have inherited at that point.
Well, doctor, we agreed offline that I'm now adopted into your family because I must share in your dynasty, sir. But I had a neighbor then who was a lawyer.
Okay.
And I asked him for a template for a will. It's only in hindsight that I realized why he was so reluctant in giving it to me, because he didn't understand why someone so young would be thinking about a will, be thinking about something so morbid, so to speak. After a while, he did give it to me, but then the organization I was working for shortly after opened a trustee firm, and I decided, okay, I'll do it with an entity which for me was also more secure, would also give me continuity and peace of mind. Now, to buttress this, the average African, if I dare say, traditionally speaking, they feel that if they do a will today, they will die tonight. Yes. And so people are typically averse to setting up wills or trusts because they feel it means that death is looming in the neighborhood. Okay. And it doesn't work like that. I often, when I was in corporate, when I was still in paid employment, when I'm talking about this aspect of wealth transfer and preservation, really, I often likened having a will to having a resume, a CV, that you go ahead. First of all, your resume is just a collation of all the things that you have done, the education you have acquired, the skills, the competencies, the places you have worked. It's just a record of that for whoever will read it, because half the time when your resumes are read, you are not there anyway. It goes ahead of you. Now, a will is also just the same thing. A collection of all the assets that you have acquired over a period of time. And also, like the will, like the CV, it is also not read while you are there. And by the time I tried to explain this to people, it just made logical sense. I said, when you have your CV ready, does that guarantee you're getting a new job tomorrow? It doesn't. It just means you are prepared for an opportunity. When you have your will ready, it doesn't also mean you're dying tonight. It just means that you are also prepared. Both cases, it shows responsibility. So having a will or having a trust does not mean that death is in the corner. It just means that you're responsible enough to have a record of all the places that you have invested and put money. You have put time. You have invested your resources into acquiring certain things. So again, we don't just go about, saying, I have a will to the wrong people. I mean, I can say I have a will because, hey, the only issue is they don't know what is inside. So we advise people, your will is not call your entire adubo and your family members and say, we're writing a will, and you now put who gets what. That is the recipe for problems. Because wills and trusts are confidential.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I see a phrase here, dead man's money. This is intriguing. Mm-hmm. It is said that it's called dead man's money. How do you find out if, for example, a parent or parents die without their children? Okay?
Knowing.
How do they now access? Interesting. Dead man's money.
Dead man's money.
Okay, talk to us about that.
And first of all, let me just put this out there. The fundamental reason we're having this conversation is to make sure that dead men's monies don't go missing when there are families members who should benefit from these resources.
For sure.
Now, I can tell you, and I typically like to use myself as an example, because at the end of the day, I'm not coming to sue myself, and nobody can say, disclosed their own situations. My professional training does not also encourage, breach of confidentiality. So I would rather use myself. I have a will, and I update it regularly. I update it and I share whoever is the person who has stressed me. Between the last time and the time I'm updating it, I will remove some percentage from that person and give another person. Please, we cannot be rewarding stressing me or harassing me, which is what your will is meant to be. It is meant to be you distributing money, or your assets rather. Remember I said we use those terms interchangeably. You're distributing your wealth, your assets, according to how you want it to go. And it does not have to make sense to anybody. It just needs to make sense to you.
Yeah, Vida, something tells me that the person who is saying this is someone in real need. Yeah, it's a reality. People whose parents' money is locked up.
Yeah.
So how practically can they retrieve this?
When my father was alive, back in the day, I know he used to bank with ACB, African Continental Bank of those days.
Yeah.
I was how old? I was born in their retirement age. So I was really young. But just by being around him, I knew the banks he banked. That part was not secret. If people pay attention to conversations around their parents, they would know which bank their parents, their siblings use. That's a starting point. Anyone, first of all, let me back up a little bit. Anyone who, first of all, passes on without a will or a trust in place, the family the beneficiaries have to go and get a letter of administration because they said that that person passed on interstate.
Okay.
Because there was none of those documents in place. So they now have to go get a letter of administration, which they would now write to the various organizations, institutions where they have investments or bank accounts, or they know the assets. Maybe they have a house here, they have a land here, and all those things need to be captured in a letter of administration. And it is from that letter of administration then they can now start, engaging. So where they do not know where all the assets are, but there has to be a starting point. There has to be, you see, we went back to the situation of relationships. How do we transfer relationships? There are friends, your parents' best friends. You know who they talk to often.
Okay.
You should know who you invest. Yes, who your parents, related with. There are conversations that, people tell themselves, but they probably don't tell the children. Those are places to start from. XYZ, sorry, Sal, my father passed on, and I know you and him were very close. Are there any instructions, anything that he confided in you that could help? Again, hoping and trusting that the relationships that were established were good relationships and not the typical African man's wickedness to man, village people type of situation, But those are places to start from. I have mentioned to my family that my will is with XYZ organization. That's the most. And I didn't say, call Mo, I want to tell you people that I have a will, and that, I didn't do that. It was just in the middle of gist. And I just dropped it there. Oh, that's how we did something. My will is in so and so. What I did was, I have planted the seed. They know where to go in the scenario that I am no longer on earth and I have gone to heaven, because that's the only option I have chosen to agree. I will go to heaven. As and when due. So people ought to have these conversations. They ought to talk about it. Another deterrent, is the fear. I've talked about fear. Is trust. Like
a fear, superstition, okay, just
yes,
same thing, yeah?
Yes, and then trust. Trust is the real commodity. If you want to do business with me, you're not doing business with me so much because you have a strong legal firm that can take me to court if I default. That's a distraction from business. That's energy wasted. You're doing business with me essentially not also because I have money to put in as equity. It doesn't mean you're doing business with me because I have relationships that will make the business, fly. No. You're actually doing business with me because you trust me. So trust is the real currency in all this. And so you want to make sure that where you are, where you are conversing about your assets and transferring and all, there's a trust conversation. So people don't want to do wills, or they don't even want to tell their families that there is a will somewhere, which again is risky. People, in the course of life and in the journey of career, we have seen where spouses don't put themselves as beneficiaries at all in each other's wills, or put themselves as next of kin. There's a difference between next of kin and beneficiaries. Next of kin is just, we will contact you if for any reason we're trying to reach our principal client and we can't find the principal client, so we're just going to reach out to you because that's the person who should know where that person should be. While the beneficiary...
Oh, it doesn't mean that that's the person who will receive...
Not at all.
Your wealth, okay.
Not at all. Actually, in a standard will, whoever you put as a next of kin should not be a beneficiary in that document. Oh, yes. Actually, yes. Because whoever you put as a next of kin, there is a place on that document they will sign. Now, if I have signed somewhere you have put out a situation where there's a gray area of, did that person who signed, did the person see that they were listed as beneficiaries on that document? It means it has opened up a gray area of, did they influence the content of that document?
Interesting. There is a company that says never leave home without it. So what I'm hearing from you is never live this life without a lawyer. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. One of the first relationships I established as I set out to into the journey of entrepreneurship and business ownership is, a lawyer is my friend.
Okay.
I have a legal practitioner, a legal representative, and him and my accountant were best. Well, those are my best friends. Whether there's money in the account or not, they know. They know what's going on my mind. If I have an idea, if I want to trademark something, if I want to do anything, my lawyer is my friend. He's not my lawyer; he's my friend.
Dude, as we are winding down, Dr. Ken, we have a contribution or.
Yeah, I've enjoyed that. I wasn't going, because of the level of enjoyment, I wasn't going to quickly promise a 3.0, because now we're talking about transfer, we're talking about wills. And I'm sure a lot of people would be interested in this topic, especially those who are still sitting on the fence. I think we'll have a couple of minutes for Vida to tell us her proverb and then the music for the week. Am I right, Taisolo?
Oh yes, she said it here that she has a favorite song and
yes,
an indigenous proverb.
Now, Doctor, I'm just going to say it, so then you're going to rebalance it, whether it is actually a saying or a proverb. Okay, so this time around, my indigenous, I'll just call it a saying, is from the Yoruba culture, and it says, "Enitani ati nko tani langbe laruge," which means that it is who we have and what we have that we place honor or we esteem. Now, to tie it to today's conversation, really and truly, if for any reason we have done all we can in this life to acquire wealth, and you're free to define your own wealth, if you do not hold it in honor and in esteem, nobody's going to do that. I recently heard Adire is now made in China. How? It can only happen because we, the owners of that, have not held it in the right esteem and honor that it should be. I saw recently that if America was the highest producer of cassava, all of us would be using cassava aggressively because they will have held it in high esteem. They are the highest producers of wheat, best I know. And so literally everything we do everywhere, baking, cooking, whatever, is a derivative of wheat. So we have to also look back. In Asia, everybody that wants to get a proper body massage, they know Asians are the dons of that. That's a skill, that's a wealth vehicle. They have harnessed, they have kept it. And so we also must look at ourselves and say, the wealth of our culture, it has to go beyond the negative. Shango killing somebody, or Amadio has striken somebody. We have to turn the narrative around to be wealth creation. We watch all those Ghostbusters. If it was an African derivative, it would be one scary, blood-sucking something. But we watch all those things with glee. Vampire series. Oh, they're so cute. That's the same thing we do in Nigeria. We're like, oh my God, blood of Jesus. Don't watch it. But we rush there to watch the westernized version of it because they have placed premium value and made it a wealth vehicle. We have to also look at ourselves. So, I mean, just to wrap this up, yesterday, as Dr. Ken had mentioned, I hosted a program, Communication to Congress, and we talked significantly about transfer, actually. Communication is the vehicle that we use to transfer wealth, knowledge, relationships, everything rides on it.
Actually, storytelling. It's the stories that they tell about it.
That stick. You know, so really, really, enitani langbe laruge, nkantani langbe laruge. You know, it's what you hold, it's what you have. Place a premium on it.
Okay, good. So with your strands of wealth that you elaborated here, financial wealth, knowledge or historical wealth, material or substantial wealth, relationship or relational wealth, skills or craftsmanship wealth, and then character or reputational wealth.
Yes.
All we need to hold dear and promote.
Absolutely.
Good. So what will be your song for the day?
I'm very loyal. So my song for the day is the national anthem, particularly the second stanza. Because I think first things first, generally speaking, Nigerians need a break. We need the Lord to help us, because these seasons it's similar to the famine season in the Bible. We're going through a famine right now in this country, and we need the mercies of the Lord. And the second stanza is actually a prayer, and it's really, really heartfelt. So I hope we're able to.
Vida, I just love this. I'm going to be standing at attention.
Yes, we're going to do that.
To your song
We're going to do that. We're going to do that.
Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome. Yes, please.
The Discourse with Dr. Ken will be right back. The Discourse. The Discourse on Classic FM. You are sharper with Dr. Ken.
Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's call obey, to serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. You see the labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and mind, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity. God of creation, direct our noble cause, and guide our leaders right. Help our youth the truth to know. In love and honesty to grow, and live in just and truth. Great lofty heights attain, to build a nation where peace and justice reigns. Oh, peace and justice reigns.
And that's it on The Discourse with Dr. Ken.